Okay, well, first off, just thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. I really, really appreciate it. Hi, my name is Molly Shilling, and today I'll be interviewing Bernadette Montana. Can you please just introduce yourself?
Well, Bernadette Montana. I do a lot. I am a witch. I'm a third-degree witch. I own a metaphysical shop in Cornwall, New York. I am a producer here for the Pursuit Studio, so there's lots going on when it comes to the movie. Mama 3, herbalist, tarot reader, and teacher, and all-around ear for many, many, many people.
Are you a good witch or a bad witch?
Okay. So that is the age-old question. There's no such thing as a good witch and a bad witch. I have to put it that way because it's a real big misnomer. I am a good person, and as by default, I'm a good witch. And that would be true of any religion, of any path, of any belief system at all. If you're a good person, then you're a good practitioner of that religion. I am a good witch because I help people a lot, maybe more, than people even realize. But we're all the same.
For those of us that are new to witchcraft and Wicca, I guess what is witchcraft exactly, and how does it relate to Wicca, and did Wicca always exist?
That's where going into a little bit of history is an important thing, because Wicca is fairly new and is in its roots or in the 1950s, when Gerald Gardner, who is the grandfather of Wicca, wrote his first book. And that happened because the witchcraft laws were repealed in England. And as a result, people could actually write about it. There were actually laws that prohibited witchcraft. Witchcraft, though, predates back millennium. So the time that somebody looked up and said, wow, that is the sun, I'm going to worship the sun, that is witchcraft. So witchcraft is ancient. Wicca is actually new. The name, which means wise one in some circles, is actually new. And I started out in Wicca, but now I don't necessarily call myself Wiccan. I call myself a progressive witch now.
How long have you been a witch, and what is your relationship to witchcraft and Wicca?
35 years, I would say. And I got my first inklings when I was around 18, 19, back in my village days in New York City. So I'm an old punk. That's where I kind of got my start with a store called Enchantments. Lady Rhea ran that place. And that was one of my first inklings. But my relationship, interesting question, because relationship means my connection. This is how I interpret it. I say probably ancient, probably before this life, because I'm so involved with herbalism. My connection to the earth is important as a healer, as a teacher. It kind of comes full circle because I'm also a mom. I have 3 sons and always had a connection. Even when I fed them, my kids never had an antibiotic until they had an ear infection. That's about the only time. So I treated them herbally, and I treat the earth as such. I garden organically and study all the time about food and science and all that. It all, to me, it's all one and the same. Science and magic and stuff, probably from the time I can probably think of. I was raised with a lot of superstition in my home. That's the Italian side, and the Puerto Rican side. There's all of that mixed in. So I think that was like...
What is your role in the Wiccan community?
I am a high priestess, and that means that I went through the system. I went through classic training, so I'm a 3rd degree high priestess, and I also have other covens that have hived off of me. With that, people need me. People, I'm mom. Everybody calls me Mama B. So if there's an issue, people call me. I also work with solitary people, and that means people who practice witchcraft on their own, and I help teach them. So I do classes, but I think I even do better one-on-one. If there's an emergency, people call me. If they need a reading right away, people call me. I guess it's just like being a good ear for most people and giving it advice. I'm at an age where I can give advice without giving a damn what really people think. Like, it just comes out. I guess it's, like I said, the Italian in me. And I give good advice based on my self-gnosis, based on my teachings and experience, especially when it comes to a spiritual matter. Because a lot of people coming into this are afraid to say things, and I've learned to not be judgmental and work with these people. I'm not perfect, but I think my role is to be that ear and to nurture a lot of people.
Speaking of, well, someone who I guess speaks their mind a lot, what would you say to someone who said that they didn't believe in Wicca or witchcraft?
I have no problems with anybody not believing anything, or anybody who believes in other things and don't agree with what I do, because the idea is, if you're into witchcraft, that means you're polytheistic. Some people will believe that there were many, many different gods and they're each individuals like we are. Other pagans will believe that there is one god and goddess and everybody else is just a reflection of them, like a diamond, if you get what I'm saying, on that. So if you're of another religion, that fits into that diagram, if that makes sense. So, okay, you're of this religion and this is your belief. It's still part of the whole. So I don't have an issue. And if somebody doesn't believe in what I do, I know that on some level they believe in the herbalism, they believe in healthy food, they believe in healing and whatever. So it's okay if they're atheist or they don't believe in what I do. As a pagan, you know, we can always get into that. It is my belief to accept what another person is. There is no judgment, because we've learned from bad mistakes of other belief systems, and we don't want to perpetrate that again.
Like, what impact has being a witch had in your life?
Spiritually fulfilling. I knew growing up something was missing, and it's hard to explain that, because you're raised with certain things. You know, I had a pretty spiritual family, but I was raised Roman Catholic. I went to all-girl Catholic high school. I went to Catholic elementary school. And when I left high school, I'm pretty passionate about history and I love that stuff. When I started to go into the history of what I was taught, I wasn't too happy. I'm not trying to blast anything, but I went, wait a minute, that didn't mesh with what I was taught. And it left me with a void. So I started with Native American aspects, because I'm part. And I said, wow, this really works, working with the earth. And this coming from a person who grew up in Harlem, you know what I mean, in 60s, 70s, and 80s, that wasn't the best time for New York. I barely knew what a tree looked like. But when I moved out of the city and moved all the way up here, I went from Manhattan to Brooklyn, from Brooklyn up here, I fell in love with the earth aspect of it. I began to resonate and started studying with various people, and spiritually it was very fulfilling for me. It gave me something that I didn't learn in high school and I didn't learn in elementary school, but it bridged the gap between the superstitions and those little things that we hinted at as growing up, and it kind of bridged that gap. So I think fulfilling is the best word.
What would you say to someone who is interested in learning more about witchcraft?
This is a question I get a lot because of having a store. I always, at first, let's say you were sitting with me and I would say, Molly, okay, what is your background? I would ask, and I get personal. What's your nationality? What is your background? What do you study? If you're interested in this, now notice I'm going to say witchcraft, not Wicca. I want to find out what your ancestors did so that you can have a connection with them first. This is not every witch's approach. This is my approach, because that's how it worked with me. I started to connect with my background. So Molly, I would say, okay, tell me more about your background. Where did your ancestors come from? Did they come from Poland? Did they come from Russia? Did they come from Puerto Rico? Did they come from Africa? And then we can start talking about what the pagan roots are there. Because remember, before monotheism, everybody was pagan. So that's a shocker when a lot of people hear that. But to me, I think ethically, it's the right thing for me to do it first.
How did you get involved in Thorn Trees, and what is your role?
Val reached out to me and told me about this wonderful project. And I was very excited about it because it would be nice to see paganism and witchcraft brought into a light that is positive and helpful and gets the word out as to what it really is. At first, I was just a consultant in working with Thorn Trees. She had asked me, because I've been doing this for a long time, but now I am now one of the producers of this wonderful series.
How do you feel that Thorn Trees represents witchcraft compared to how it's normally represented in entertainment?
It's less Hollywood. If you get what it is, there's nobody stabbing dolls, and there's nobody doing the Hollywood thing. I like the fact that Rachel and many of the other characters are women of the earth. They're herbalists. They work with that. And how it's portrayed in Thorn Trees is historically pretty correct. And I like the way that was done. Once you get into the story a little bit more, we have the pilot. They also work with other religions as well. There's almost no difference. But I can go to church and be spiritual. I can go to a shul and be spiritual. I could be outside in the woods and be spiritual and get something out of all of that. And it's kind of portrayed that way. So like I said, it's a little less Hollywood and a bit real.
Can you maybe just give us like a brief description of what Thorn Trees is?
It's not just about witchcraft. It's about relationships and a lot of these side stories here. To me, one of the first things I get out of that is the patriarchy versus the matriarchal aspects, and the differences that actually draw people away when they actually should be getting back together. They all have a similar need, right? We're talking about these people that live in this village and they need to work together in order to survive. But based on certain belief systems, it's people being people. Even though we're talking about the witchcraft aspect, there's always that main story. I can't wait for people to see this because there is a lot to the story and it's complex.
What character do you identify most with and why?
Yes, because I mentioned Rachel a couple of times. I love her strength. I really resonate. In fact, even in life, my life, I resonate more with stronger characters, and that people come into my store. My teachers, we talked before about my elders, Janet, Farah, and Gavin Bone, very strong characters and not afraid to stand in their own power. And she reminds me of that, and I really adore that about her. And in such a time and in such a tough the experiences that she and the family and the rest of the town is dealing with, she is a rock. And I'd like to think that's almost kind of like what I'm doing here in Orange County, New York. And I want to be that. I hope I emulate part of that. And she, right off the bat, it was Rachel.
For our final question, can you give me your best pitch for why someone should watch Thorn Trees?
The reason why you should be interested in Thorn Trees is because it has a realistic slant to this. This is not about witches flying on brooms and having ugly faces with warts on their face, and misinformation that is out there. Thorn Trees is educational. Thorn Trees is realistic. There are obviously different slants. There is creative licensing here because it is a story that is brilliantly written by Val and Jacob. So there is no doubt about that. And I would not be a part of this if I didn't feel that way. So I can't wait. You know, my elders are going to be a part of this. My community will know about this, and that is why you should be interested in Thorn Trees.
How else can people find you?
I do a weekly show on tarot. So it is called Tarot Talk with Bernadette Montana. And I do that as a forum for everybody. Other readers are there, and other people seeking readings and readers and stuff. And I really give a lot of information, plus a lot of people also offer that information there. It's really relaxed and chill. And then I also, on YouTube, do magical gardening with Bernadette, and that is new. And the reason why I wanted to do that is to have the spiritual or magical component of herbalism and gardening. So this way people would learn to have a connection with the vegetable and plant world, the kingdom, which a lot of people don't do. So if you want this particular herb to heal you, well, then how are you going to nurture that? And what is your intention that you put into that plant? It goes into a lot more, because I could probably go on for another hour about it, because I'm really passionate about my gardening. But those are two different ways. On Facebook, you could look under Bernadette Montana or Breed's Closet. So, and my website. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can find me.
Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.